In this lesson, what we are going to discuss is about information systems development and how does an information system development really start. Usually these kind of projects will start with either system owners, that is the people who own the information system, or the system users currently who are using this system initiate most of these information systems development projects. Maybe they have some kind of problem which they have identified in the organization, which will hinder their progress or achieving the desired goals, may be one reason to develop a new system. So, most of the time it is either the system owners or system users coming across some problem which they think if they introduce a new system they can get rid of that problem. Or sometimes it could be also that a new opportunity has arisen where the business can be expanded to bring more benefits to the organization as well as the stakeholders, that is like their customers and people who are working in the organization, the customers, all these people to have more benefits than what they are currently having. So, maybe a new opportunity arising which will give rise to more benefits within the organization, or maybe to the stakeholders who are outsiders. Example, if you take a bank for instance, providing these ATM machines is by providing new information systems, and that will give a benefit to the customers of the bank, because they do not have to go to the ATM machine at a given time. They can go at any time of the day and they can either withdraw their money, and most of these ATMs now provide for banking facilities as well, where you can deposit your money or deposit checks. So, that is an opportunity that has been recognized where more benefits could be given to the outsiders or the customers of the bank. Or it could be a new requirement that may be imposed on the organization by directives issued by the government. Now, sometimes we have various taxes being introduced by the government like VAT and pay as you earn taxes and so on. So, when this kind of taxes are introduced, you have to redevelop or re-engineer or have your information systems redesigned. So, that also may be a reason to develop new systems. Or it could be even some other external influence, such as maybe your competitors in the business that you are working in. The competitors may introduce some new features which will benefit their customers, so that you are also have to go and have that kind of features in your own organization. Otherwise, you will not be competitive with your the rest of the people who are providing this kind of service. Then we come to what is called the scope definition. By scope, what we really mean is when a new project is started, especially when you go to analyze these problems, you will find that different people of the organization will come up with different requirements, and maybe the new system that you are going to provide may not be able to solve all those problems. So, when you take a information systems development project, you have to define the scope within which you will work. So, this is the first stage of an information systems development project. The purpose of this scope definition is twofold. First is this problem, opportunity or directive worth looking at? Because sometimes people, those who are either working in the organization or your customers, may complain, but the amount of money that you are going to solve this problem, because to solve the problem you have to maybe introduce a new system, but that is not going to come just cheap. It is going to cost some money to develop this new system. So, though people complain, or there is a new opportunity, or there is a directive from some other organization, is this worth looking at? Is it worth our spending our money or maybe the time in solving this problem? So, if the above is worthwhile doing, then identifying the size and boundaries of the project. Within the project, you have to identify what are the functions that you are going to provide by this new system. Are there any constraints, like say supposing the type of system that you have to develop will cost millions of rupees, but the organization does not have that kind of money. Maybe you have only 500,000 rupees available. So, are there any constraints like that? And maybe the participants in the project, the people, the kind of people that you really want, are they available to develop this new kind of project? The budget, the money that is available, and the schedule. Sometimes certain systems can be developed in a very short period. Other systems may take a very long period. So, the schedule also has to be done up, and you have to look into the schedule to see whether the system that you are going to develop can be finished within the schedule, the time schedule that is available. So, scope definition should include, these are some of the things that the scope definition should include. The scope of the project, which may later change during the development life cycle. So, at this point you are going to give the scope of the project, that is, scope is the boundaries of the project, the areas of a business that a project may or may not address. So, you can say these are the functionalities that we are going to provide through this project, and these kind of functionalities will not be included in this project. And we have to remember, at the beginning of the project, it would be very difficult to give in detail each and every function that you are going to provide with. And sometimes you identify certain functions, and later on you are going to change your mind and say, we cannot provide this function, and do changes like that. So, that is why we say the scope of the project can change later during the various other stages of the project, because at the very beginning you have no time to go into a detailed analysis and identify things quite correctly. And this can be, project scope can be easily defined using the following things. What type of data do you have to store or input or whatever. Say if, as an example, if you take a sales information system, the customers data will have to be included in this. Then the product data, that is the description of products that you are selling. So, by looking at what type of data has to be handled in this project, you will be able to identify the scope easily. And what are the business processes or the functions in the system. Again, if we take the same sales information system, customer management, that is to if you want to communicate with the customers or their profile, and the various orders that they place with you, and the fulfillment of the orders, all these functions will have to be within that project. And what are the system interfaces with users. So, this sales information system cannot exist on its own, it has to interface, or it has to communicate with users. Sometimes these users may be in different locations, and also sometimes they may have to, this sales information system will have to communicate with other systems in the organization. As an example, we can say now this system, users of the system are like customers, sales representatives, and so on. Then locations, there may be a main head office, and they may have regional sales officers. So, your customers or your users may be distributed in those different sales offices. And then accounts receivable, that is the money that is owing to the organization from your various customers. So, there will be a accounts receivable system, but that is not within your project, the scope of your project, but your system will have to interact with the accounts receivable system. So, when you identify who are the users, where are they located at, and what are the other systems that have to interact with the system that you are going to design, you will be able to define the scope of the project. That is another way in which you can define the scope of the project. Then what are the perceived problems, the problems that have been identified, because I said earlier there are three ways in which new projects can arise. So, one is the problems, to solve the problems that have been identified. So, perceived problems, most of the time these perceived problems from the system users. And here also an analyst has to be very careful, because if you walk into an organization, if you talk to all the users, different people will have different requirements, and what you have to identify from those are the important problems that have to be solved, not each and everyone's problems, but the important problems that are useful to the or beneficial to the organization. So, that is one way in which you can define the scope. Then the opportunities which would bring more benefits to the organization, and directives that trigger the project. So, by identifying these things, it will be easy to define the scope of the new project. Then another thing that you have to look at is the project worthiness. Is this project worth doing? So, most of the time we are designing systems for business organizations. Now, business organizations really are not charity organizations. They may give their monies to charity at different times, but basically they carry on a business because they want to make profit. So, by implementing a project like this, is it worth spending their money on a project like this? That has to be looked at. So, is this project worth doing? That is what you do with what you call feasibility studies later on. Then the schedule and the budget, how long will it take and how much money it will take. Then what are the constraints on this? Budget limits, deadlines. Sometimes you are told to design projects, but it may not be possible to do it within a given deadline. So, a project delivered after the given deadline sometimes may not be useful to a business organization. Maybe their need for this new system may have passed. So, there is no point in having a system like that after that. So, they must be delivered on time, whether it is possible to deliver the proposed system within such time limits. Then the availability of human resources, because though these are computerized systems that you are developing, it is the human beings that have to develop these things. So, whether you have the human resources required for development of such a system. Then communication of the project plan or project proposal. Finally, once you have identified your scope and the schedules and the budget and the human resources needed, you may have to communicate these ideas to the owners of this project, that is to the business organization or whatever the organization that you are going to do this new project for. So, you have to communicate this project plan or the project proposal to the owners of this project, and to do that you have to have good communication skills and good writing skills if you are going to do a written report. Otherwise, if it is a formal just presentation, then you have to have good communication skills, because you have to convince a set of people that what you are saying is what they want to do. So, it takes a lot of communication skills to put this across rightly, so that they will accept your proposal. So, at this stage, at the scope definition stage, it is not necessary to spend a lot of time preparing this scope definition and the project proposal, and modeling or prototyping may not be required. So, I would like you to refer to the sample problem statement given in figure 5.8 in the reference book 1, page 171 for more details. Then how do you discover a problem? Like people will tell you when you visit an organization, this is the problem we face, this is what is lacking here. There will be several stories that you have to listen to. And then how do you, from all these communications that you have with the users, how do you really identify what the problem is? We will look at a small example. Let us say a mother takes a young child to a doctor because the child is ill. Now, the mother can identify that the child is ill, and she will probably she would have felt that the child is running a temperature, because that is something that she can really feel, and also she will observe that the child is very restless and that child is in some kind of pain, she will be able to identify. But she does not really know what the cause of this. So, what she will probably do at home is she will probably give some painkillers and for some medicine to bring the temperature down. Is she really now, has she identified the problem and is she treating the child? No, she has observed that the child has a temperature, so she is giving some medicine to bring down the temperature, and she observes that the child has some kind of pain, so she may give some painkillers. But once you take the child to the doctor will ask several questions, and the mother will say the child has an earache, the child has a fever, and the child has a runny nose. Now, are these the problems? As far as the mother is concerned, yes, these are the problems that she sees, but you have to get at the root of the problem. You can't just be giving painkillers and medicine to bring down the temperature like what the mother has been doing, but the child has not improved with all this. So, that is because the mother is treating the symptoms really and not the real problem or the root cause. However, the doctor will do more analysis based on his experience and so on, analyze the symptoms further, examine the child and makes his conclusion, which says the child is now, he comes to the conclusion that the child has an ear infection. So, problem is identified after analysis. Now, he has to recommend a cure, a solution from a selection of solutions. Now, there are various medicines that the doctor can give. There are various ways in which this can be given, in the form of injections or liquid medicine or pills or whatever. So, he has to, there are various options available to him. Now, he has to decide what is the best way of treating this child. An antibiotic can be prescribed and the determined constraints on the medicine that can be prescribed. How can this medicine be given? How old is the child? If it is a very small child, infant, he or she may not be able to take solid medicine, that is like tablets or something. And sometimes we know, depending on the weight of the children, you have to increase the dose, or they may have allergic conditions to various medications. So, you have to rule that also out. And if the child is big enough to swallow pills. So, given all these constraints, the doctor has to now decide what is the treatment that is going to be given to the child. So, he will do all this analysis properly and then will prescribe some medicine. Now, system analysts also use the same problem solving processes as a doctor uses, but instead of diagnosing medical problems, what they really diagnose are system problems. The way in which you analyze and the way in which you diagnose problems is more or less similar. Like when you talk to the users will come up with various problems. Now, those problems are the what they can see as problems. It is what is visible to the users. Actually, the cause of the problem really has to be analyzed by the systems analysts. Then we said earlier that before you undertake a project, you have to do a feasibility study. What we mean by a feasibility is how beneficial or practical and a new information system will be to the organization, a measure of how beneficial or practical a new information system will be to the organization. Now, this feasibility has to be measured throughout the life cycle. It is not only at the beginning of a project or before you really get into the body of the project. There are various stages at which you have to see whether this project is feasible. Then feasibility analysis is the process by which the feasibility is measured. This is, as I said earlier, an ongoing evaluation of feasibility at various checkpoints in the life cycle. It is not something that you do once in the system life cycle. It has to be imposed at different checkpoints in the life cycle. So, now we will look at these feasibility checkpoints in the software development life cycle, and the feasibility of a project can be changed during the system development. What you really do is you re-evaluate the feasibility, because as time goes, as you get into the project, deeper into a project only, you really understand the requirements and so on, and at those times you may identify that the problems that you identified have changed now, or the money that you thought you will have to spend at the beginning is not the same, you will have to spend more time, or and cost more money also, time means money. So, changes will have to be made. That is the nature of systems. It is not something static which you determine at the initial stages and then try to justify what you really proposed. So, to reevaluate feasibility, there are different checkpoints, and a project may be cancelled, revised or continued at any checkpoint despite whatever resources have been spent. So, when you get on to these, by the time you get on to these various checkpoints, certain amounts of money and time would have been spent, but irrespective of the time or the money, if later on you find that the project is not feasible, it may have to be abandoned. So, sometimes the systems analysts have to decide whether to abandon the project or whether to do changes or whether it should be done in some other manner. So, the various checkpoints are in the system analysis stage, that is the scope definition checkpoint, problem analysis checkpoint and the decision analysis checkpoint. We will look at these one by one. In the scope definition checkpoint, measure of the urgency of the problem. You have to make an evaluation and see how urgent is this problem to be solved. Find the first cut estimate of development costs. The first cut estimate means because at this stage you haven't gone into the details of the problem, that is the system has not been analyzed thoroughly. So, any estimate that you give at this point is only a very it cannot be a detailed estimate, and the development costs you cannot say that these are exactly the development costs. So, anyway you have to have some idea. So, you do a first cut estimate and answer the question, do the problems or opportunities or the directives warrant the cost of a detailed study and analysis of the current system, right. So, this problem that the users have been complaining about, or the opportunities that some board member or some stakeholder has identified, is it worth solving, and is it worth going more or finding more details about this system. Then the problem analysis checkpoint occurs after a more detailed study and problem analysis of the current system. That is, once you have identified the various aspects, the data inputs, then the reports that have to be generated and the various functionalities that have to be provided. Once you have identified those, what you initially expected may have to be changed. At this point, you can make a better estimate of the development cost and the benefits, because you have gone into more details of the system. And if the minimum value of solving a problem is equal to the cost of the problem, whatever the problem that you have, in solving that problem, if you can, what we mean by the cost of the problem is, because of this problem you are losing some money, you are losing actually your company's what the stakeholders of the company may not see the company working as quite like, how shall I say it, maybe it is not successful the way they are doing it, or how the customers see the way the company is doing certain things. So, solving that problem, if it is not equal to the cost of the problem, then it may not be worth solving that problem. Then the decision analysis checkpoint represent major feasibility analysis activities. Charts one of many possible implementations as the target. So, when you try to solve a problem, always there are various ways of solving the problem. Like what I said earlier, now the doctor prescribing this medicine to the child could have prescribed different kinds of medicine, and he could have also administered that medicine in different ways, either through injection or maybe through giving syrups or maybe pills. So, similarly in system analysis solutions also there can be different ways of solving the problem. So, you have to look at those different types of solutions that are available, and for each one of these solutions that are available, you will have to define the following things: input output methods, that is input of data and output of the information. How do you want to store the data? Data storage methods, are they conventional files or are they databases? If it is databases, what type of databases, and so on. Hardware requirements. Then the software requirements, like when we get software, you can buy software that is available on the shelf, or you can develop your in-house software by your own team of programmers, or you may outsource this developing the software to other parties. Then what are the processing methods that you are going to use, and the people implications. People implications means what is the implication that will be on the people in the organization as well as stakeholders. Now, sometimes when we have very high technological solutions, sometimes the people who are working in the organization or even the people who are going to use the system may find it difficult to use this system. So, in that case, that kind of solution will not be acceptable. At the decision analysis checkpoint, again there are a range of options evaluated by the analyst. So, the analyst will probably say, leave the current system alone, leave it as it is without doing any changes. Re-engineer the manual processes, that is the way the company has been doing things, you re-engineer those manual processes, streamlining the activities, reducing duplication and unnecessary tasks. Especially when you walk into government departments and so on, you will find that certain activities are duplicated. Different people are doing the same thing, different departments are doing the same thing, and sometimes people are doing unnecessary tasks because they have been doing this for ages. Since they really do not understand why you do a certain thing, and just because it has been done over a period of time, they keep on repeating it. So, some of those tasks that they are doing may be unnecessary or duplicated, which again costs money and time. Enhance existing computer processes. So, already if there is a computer based solution, the analyst will say give more value added services to that, add more value added services to those and enhance the existing functions. Purchase package software, that is another way of solving problems. Design and construct a new computer based system, altogether a new system to be designed, and after defining these options, each option should be analyzed separately. So, these are the various feasibilities. It is not only the economics of it or the timing of it, but you have to consider these various feasibilities. The operational feasibility, cultural or political feasibility, technical feasibility, schedule feasibility, economic feasibility and the legal feasibility. We will look at one by one separately. First, the operational feasibility. It is a measure of how well a solution meets the identified system requirements to solve the problem. You have suggested so many things to be done. Now, how much of the problem is really solved by these solutions that you have provided? So, the solutions that you are providing should satisfy the requirements of the system. That is, requirements means the problems that you have identified should be solved by this solution. So, it is a measure of how much of those problems are solved by this solution. Take advantage of the opportunities identified during the scope definition and problem analysis phases. will the solution fulfill the user's requirements? To what degree? Is it going to be 100% solved, or is it going to be 75%, or is it only 25% of the problem that is going to be solved? So, you have to do some kind of identifying like that. How will the solution change the user's work requirement? Now, environment in which the users are used to working now, because it is very difficult to get people to change the way they are doing things, and when you impose change, people are going to be very unhappy. So, the solution that you have provided, for each one of those solutions you will have to see how is it going to change the user's working environment. How do users feel about such a solution? If the system can be very fine, very elegant, very well designed systems, sometimes we find that users do not want them, they are not happy at using them. That is because this may not have been taken into consideration during the development of the project. How do users feel about such a solution? So, always we have to take into consideration the users, their requirements, and how they feel about the solutions that you are proposing. Then the cultural or political feasibility, a measure of how well the solution will be accepted in a given organizational climate. Now, when we think about systems, there can be a system that works very well in the United States or UK or some other country, or maybe India. Just because it works so well in those countries, does it mean that it is going to work well in our country as well? Our cultural ways of doing things and may not be the same as in the other countries. So, it deals with how the end users feel about the proposed system and evaluates whether a system will work in a given organizational climate. It is not only the climate differs from country to country, but even within the same country, sometimes the private sector, the way they work is not the same as the way the people work in the government sector. So, if you are going to impose something which is not really, which does not go along with the culture of working that they have been doing, it may not work within that organization, though it worked well for another organization. Then the technical feasibility, it is a measure of the practicality of a technical solution. Now, we have very high powered technical solutions which can be done in another country, but within the given technical environment that is available in our country, whether this new technology is available, availability of resources as well as the expertise, these things have to be considered. Just because you could implement it in another country does not mean that it will be so for our country as well, because sometimes some of these technical solutions can be very, very expensive, and for a country like ours it may not be suitable, or sometimes depending on the telecommunications in our country, the infrastructure in the country may be not suitable for that kind of solutions. And this addresses three major issues: is the proposed technology or solution practical? So, is it practical for our country? Do we currently possess the necessary technology, hardware, personnel? Do we have trained people to implement this kind of new technologies? Do we possess the necessary technical expertise? Then the schedule feasibility is a measure of how reasonable a project timetable is. Now, sometimes when you walk into a place, the analyst will be told, he may ask, okay, when do you want this? As soon as possible, right? That is what you get, or maybe by next week or next month. So, users most of the time and the owners of these systems really do not think that it is so time taking to develop systems. That is because people do prototypes and show a prototype. Developing a prototype may be a very easy task, but prototype is not the system, and this is something that the owners fail to understand. They think the prototype is also the system. So, can the solution be designed and implemented within an acceptable time period? So, when the users or the owners of the system see the prototype, they think, okay, now it is ready, But as analysts and designers and developers, we all know that it is not the same. The prototype is just to identify the user requirements most of the time, and how much time is available to build the new system, when it can be built. And there may be mandatory or desirable deadlines. Mandatory means really if you cannot deliver it within that given time, then the system is useless. Or desirable deadlines may be there. They do not say specifically it has to be delivered within a certain time, but they may say this is desirable, say 3 months, 3 to 4 months they will say is desirable. Then finally, the economic feasibility, a measure of the cost effectiveness of a project. Is the solution cost effective? Whether the solution will pay for itself, how profitable the solution is. Once the specific requirements and solutions have been identified, weigh the costs and benefits of each alternative, that is by doing a cost benefit analysis, and you have to take into consideration the various costs involved in it. Personnel cost, that is you may have to train new people, and computer costs, new equipment may have to be purchased. Then the users may have to be trained to use the system. The software will have to be developed or purchased, and you may have tangible benefits, intangible benefits. Tangible benefits really mean what you really can put your calculate at the moment. You can say, okay, we will earn 100,000 rupees by implementing a project like this. Intangible benefits means you cannot cost like that, but probably it will give a better image to the company. Like if it is a bank or something like that, the services that the bank provides is like if you take the HSBC, they say it is your local global bank, right. So, that means the facilities that are available in any other country through the HSBC is available even in Sri Lanka or anywhere for that matter. So, those are the tangible benefits, because a customer feels if you are going to a particular bank, if those services are available in any other country wherever he has to visit, it is a great benefit for the user. So, those are tangible benefits. Really we can't put a cost and say this amount of money you will get by implementing this project. Then the legal feasibility, a measure of how well a solution can be implemented within existing legal and contractual obligations. So, when we say legal, the law of the country also has to be taken into consideration, and understand potential legal and contractual ramifications of the system. Copyright laws, that is like license agreements, should not be violated. Non-disclosure clauses, that is without the permission of the owner company, you cannot disclose to any others what is within the system, like the code, the programming code should not be disclosed. Then the ownership of the code, if developed with outside assistance, you have to be very, very specific, because if outsiders are developing, then maybe that same code can be given to one of your competitors. Even if people within the organization, if they are developing the code, then you should have to sign some sort of agreements with them that they will not give this code to the competitors. The labor laws have to be taken into consideration. Foreign trade and labor regulations, financial and accounting standards, government constraints, and pending legislation also may have to be considered. The cost benefit analysis. What does the cost benefit analysis really do? It determines the cost effectiveness of a project or a solution. Now, why do we want to do this in the first place? Now, for a business organization, they can spend their money or they can invest their money in different projects. So, they have to really think whether by spending this kind of money on a project like this, whether the returns that they get are worthwhile, because there are so many other ways in which they can invest their money. There may be more beneficial ways of earning money for the organization. Therefore, before we really go into the implementations of this, the cost benefit analysis has to be done. So, the cost benefit analysis is to answer questions such as, is this project justified? Whether you really should spend money on a project like this. Do benefits outweigh costs? Can the project be done within given cost constraints? The company or the organization has only a certain amount of money available for this project. So, can the project be done within the given cost constraints? What is the minimal cost to attain a certain system? Now, we said there can be different solutions or different ways of solving the problem. Then, what is the minimal cost to the lowest cost to attain a certain system? What is the preferred alternative among candidate solutions? So, without doing a cost benefit analysis for each and every candidate solution, you cannot say solution 1 is better than solution 2, or you can't make vague statements like that. You have to do really a cost benefit analysis, and then only you can decide what is the best solution to use. So, how much will the new system cost? There are two types of costs associated with developing the system and the costs associated with operating the system. That is, after you have implemented it, there will be a certain amount of money involved in running operations. So, developing the system, that is, you can say like when you buy a car, there is an initial cost, but that is not all. When you run the car also, you have some operational costs, that is like diesel or petrol costs, and then you have to replace the tires, then you have to do servicing of the car. So, those are operational costs. So, for each and every solution that you have found or you are going to propose, you have to see how much it will cost to develop the system, then how much it will cost to operate the new system once it is implemented. Now, developing the system can be estimated from the outset of a project. At the very beginning of the project also you can give an estimate, should be refined at the end of each phase. So, you cannot say this is the cost and try to stick to it, because things can change from time to time. So, at the end of each phase in the system development life cycle, you have to take a realistic look. And one time cost, these will not recur after the project has been completed. So, there are one time costs, and then there are recurring costs that can be there during the operation time. Operating systems can be estimated only after specific computer based solutions have been defined and recur throughout the lifetime of the system. So, these can be even like, say, supposing if you have taken a loan from the bank, then or you have leased your equipment from the bank, then the lease payments that have to be paid on loans, or variable costs such as supplies costs like your stationery, the storage material, these also you have to, during operations time you have to get these things, and they can vary from time to time, because supplies are not going to be the same every year, they will cost most of the time more and more. So, system development cost categories: during the development stage, personnel costs, that is the salaries of the people, programmers and analysts and so on. Computer usage, for programming, testing, prototyping, etc., you have to use computer time. Training for computer personnel or end users. Supply, duplication and equipment costs. Cost of any new computer equipment and the software. Then what benefits will the system provide? How do you determine the benefits? Benefits in the way of increased profits or decreased costs, and we can classify them as tangible benefits. I talked about this earlier also, and intangible benefits. What are these tangible benefits? A benefit that can be easily quantified, that is, you can measure it. Increased throughput, that is, how many jobs can you do at a given time. Decreased response time, that is, you can get the textbook definitions for these from the textbook. Decreased response time, the customer wants some service from the system. How much does the system take to provide that response? Then they can be really measured. Intangible benefits, the benefit that is believed to be difficult or impossible to quantify. You cannot really measure it, but like improved customer goodwill. Customer is satisfied with the way you are providing services, and you are providing a better service to the community by these projects. So, is the proposed system cost effective? More than anything else, is it cost effective? Because as I said earlier, there are so many ways in which money can be used for business organizations. That is, they can put their money in various ways, spend their money in various ways, and some projects may bring better benefits than this current system that you are going to suggest. So, there are three ways in which we can measure the cost effectiveness. One is called the payback analysis, second one is return on investment analysis, and the net present value analysis. More details of this are given in your textbook, pages 423 to 426. I suggest that you look at those examples and the calculations that have been done. Now, all three methods use what is called the time value of money. Now, we know what is meant by this time value of money is, if we can do, we all have heard of what is called inflation. Now, 1000 rupees about 2 years ago could do a lot of things for you. You can go to the market, or you can, when you are shopping, you can buy more things with 1000 rupees 2 years ago. But today you find that you cannot do what you used to do 2 years ago with this 1000 rupees now. And in time to come, maybe in another 2 years time, this 1000 rupees you may not be able to do even what you are doing today. So, that is what it means by the time value of money. So, in the payback analysis, it is a technique for determining if and when an investment will pay for itself. Like the benefits that you are going to accrue from this system, will the money that you have spent on the new system will be earned within a given period of time. And how long will it take? Usually in years to pay back for the project and the accrued costs. So, total costs, initial plus incremental costs plus the yearly return or savings should be 0. This is called really the break even point. Many companies have a payback period guideline for all investments. The way you invest your money, there is a payback period guideline. If the break even point is greater than the given payback period guideline, then it cannot be determined as a sound investment. So, what you do is you calculate this, right, and then you see whether your payback period guideline, the break even point for your project is, if it exceeds the payback period guideline, then there is no point in investing your money in such a project, because it cannot be determined as a sound investment. In other words, if you put the same money that you are going to invest in developing this project, if it is invested in some other way, it could bring better returns for the organization. Then the return on investment analysis, ROI analysis, is a technique that compares the lifetime profitability of alternative solutions. So, we said there are systems analysts can always propose candidate solutions, that is, one or more solutions can be proposed. So, for each one of these solutions, you will have to calculate the lifetime ROI or lifetime return on investment. And how do you calculate that? Estimated lifetime benefits minus estimated lifetime costs, and the whole thing divided by the estimated lifetime costs. And examples of this ROI you will find again in the textbook, the pages that I have given you. Then the net present value analysis is a comparison of the annual discounted costs and benefits of the alternative solutions. A spreadsheet program like Excel or Lotus 123 can be used to calculate all these values. So, feasibility analysis of candidate systems. During the decision analysis phase of system analysis, identify the candidate system solutions. So, what are the various solutions that you are proposing, and analyzes the solution for feasibility. For each one of those candidate solutions, you have to do a feasibility analysis. Can use two alternatives to compare and contrast candidate system solutions. So, by using some method, you have to now compare and contrast the different candidate solutions. One method is called the candidate system matrix and the other uses what is called a feasibility analysis matrix. So, for both you use a matrix format. In the candidate systems matrix, it is used to document similarities and differences between the candidate systems. So, what you are really doing is you are comparing the candidate systems, offers no analysis, columns represent the various candidate solutions, and in the rows you represent characteristics that differentiates each candidate. We will look at an example. So, your matrix will be something like this. The columns have the various candidate solutions, that is the candidate 1 name, candidate 2 name and candidate 3 name. Then who are the stakeholders? There are 4 rows, 1 row for stakeholders, 1 row for the knowledge and 1 for the processes and 1 for communications. So, this is the template that you will use for the candidate systems matrix. So, what do you really mean by stakeholders? You have to identify how the system will interact with people and other systems. There may be 3 different candidate proposals. So, for each one of those you have to identify the stakeholders. Then identify the second row for each one of those candidate solutions, identify how data stores be implemented. Input data stores implementation means, like I said, conventional files or databases. Inputs will be captured. There are so many ways in which you can input the data, maybe through a keyboard or a scanner or barcode mechanism, any such mechanisms. Then outputs will be generated. How are you going to give the outputs? Is it through printouts or is it on a screen display? Various ways, conventional files or relational databases, how data will be captured, etc. So, that is what you are going to compare under the knowledge. For each one of the candidate solutions, you will have to do that. Then the processes. Processes means actually the functions, right? Identify how manual business processes will be modified. For each one of these candidate solutions, currently if you are having some manual processes, how each candidate solution will modify those processes, how computer processes will be implemented. Then the communications, the last one, identify how processes and data will be distributed, centralized versus decentralized, etc. So, these processes and data, now like if we take as an example, say the bank or a retail company, they will, like say Cargill's Food City, if you take, there are many branches spread out in the country. So, you are processing these various functions, are they going to be done in each and every regional shop like that, or is it in a centralized location? If you take a bank, is this all the processing going to be done in one central bank or in your regional offices as well, right? So, data, whether you are going to centralize the data or whether you are going to decentralize. Say for Galle customers, are you going to keep the data of these Galle customers in the Galle branch? Colombo customers in the Colombo. Anuradhapura customers, do you keep it in the Anuradhapura bank? Or are you going to bring it to the central location, the main office branch? So, things like this will have to be decided, not only data, the way you store data, even how processes will be conducted. So, for each one of these candidate solutions, you will look at these properties and then you will be able to do a decide which is the best solution out of the candidate solutions that have been proposed. Then the feasibility analysis matrix work in a little different way. It is used to rank candidate systems. You give a rank or a value to each candidate solution. Again, columns represent the candidate response, rows correspond to the feasibility criteria, each cell contains the feasibility assessment notes for each candidate. Again, we will look at an example. So, this is a feasibility analysis matrix. This is candidate 1, candidate 2, candidate 3 and so on, the various proposed candidate solutions. Then you give a description. Now, in the first candidate, you are saying the software will be purchased off the shelf, some package to be bought off the shelf. So, this looks a very convenient solution because it is very quick. Some package that is already available, you purchase it. You can do it very quickly. Or the second candidate says develop new application in-house development using either VB.NET and have a SQL server database. The third candidate solution says rewrite current application using Power Builder. So, these are three different solutions you have got. Then you have to look at we said feasibility, there are many kinds of feasibility. So, for each one of these, now you have to say for operational feasibility for all three. If we take the first candidate, there is a problem with this, does not support all requirements, security concerns are also there. So, when you purchase a package from what is available in the market, it may not satisfy all the user requirements. So, that is one disadvantage, and also there may be security concerns. So, the score that you give is really only 60 here, because it is not 100% perfect. Then the second candidate solution, it fully supports user requirements, because you are going to do this, develop the software in-house, you can design it in such a way that all the user requirements will be satisfied. Third candidate fully supports user requirements again, because you are going to rewrite all this using the Power Builder. So, the score given here is 100, score given here is also 100. Out of the total feasibility, you allocate only 15% to the operational feasibility. This is another thing that you have to do here. For each kind of feasibility, you have to give a weighting. So, operational feasibility has 15%. Then there is a cultural feasibility, again allocated 15%. For the first candidate solution, there is a score of 70, that is possible user resistance to the interface. Here you do not see any such foreseeable problems, therefore, the scores are 100. Then the technical feasibility is given 20%, and here you get a score of 50 only for the first candidate, because package in the market only for 6 weeks. This particular package that is being proposed has been in the market only for 6 weeks. So, you do not know how well it will perform, because it has not been there in the market for a long period. And also, to use this new package, you may have to hire new personnel, because this is a new package. This will be easy, because you will have to again hire new programmers, but programmers with VB.NET are not difficult to find. So, it gets a score of 95. In this case, what is the problem with using Power Builder? Future versions of Power Builder after a merger being incompatible with MS SQL Server, which is currently used by the company. So, it is being given a score of 60 only. Then the economic feasibility has 30% weightage, schedule feasibility has 10%. This has got a score of 60, because you have to train the economic feasibility, the score is only 60, here a score of 85 and here a score of 90. Because this may be expensive, because you are buying it from outside, developing it in-house may be cheaper. This will be about same, almost similar to this. Schedule feasibility, this will take only less than 3 months, because you are going to buy it off the shelf. So, it has a high score of 95 compared to the other two. This will take about 9 to 12 months. So, the score is 80. This is about 9 months. So, the score is 85 for the schedule feasibility. Then the legal feasibility, candidate 1, there is no foreseeable problems in all 3. So, the score given is 100. So, this 100% here, the weighted score was achieved by this 10% legal feasibility, schedule feasibility 10%, economic feasibility 30% and so on. So, out of the three candidates, the candidate 1 has got a score of 67. This has got a score of 92.5 and the candidate 3 has got a score of 87.5. So, most probably the solution that will be accepted would be this particular solution, because it has out of 100% 92.5. So, this is the way you do a feasibility analysis matrix. Then finally, once you have done all these things, you have to really present it to your users. The users may be the system users, or it may be the owners of the system, or it may be some outsiders who are the customers of the system, who in turn will have to use the system. So, you have to make a proposal of all these findings that you have so far made. It can be in the form of a written report, or it can be in the form of a presentation. Now, usually a formal written report, or it will be a oral presentation. This is intended for system owners and users. So, you will have your formal written report or oral presentation, and who will be the participants at this? System owners and end users. Written report, we say it is the most abused method used by analysts, because they will have very long reports, large reports, which nobody would want to read at this point, and with lot of technical details and so on, which cannot be understood by the users, because you have to keep in mind that users, most the users will be non-technical people, they may not be even IT personnel. So, in a written report, having a lot of technical definitions and so on may not be good. Usually, written report has two things, what you call the primary elements and the secondary elements. Primary elements actually contain the actual information that you want to give to the users. It will also have an introduction and a conclusion. Introductions and conclusions have to be really written in language which can be understood by non-technical people. Now, the secondary elements are what we really use to package the report, like the binding and the covers and so on, and the reader can easily identify the report and its primary elements. So, you have to really give the content, give a contents page and so on, and also it gives a kind of a professional polish to the report, rather than just giving some pieces of paper. You prepare a document which is properly bound and presented. And secondary elements for a written report will contain what is called the letter of transmitter. Now, this should not be hidden in the report. It states what type of action is needed in the report. It can be used to draw attention to special features of the report and to acknowledge the help that has been received. It is an important document or important piece of information. So, it has to be properly done, and the title page should be there, table of contents, list of figures, illustrations and tables, an abstract or executive summary. Executive summary should be just 1 or 2 page document, and primary elements are presented in this portion of the report, because it will summarize what you have identified as problems and what your solutions are, and then of course the appendices. So, all those calculations that you have done and so on can go into the appendices. In a formal presentation, this may be a special meeting between the people who are going to develop the system and the users. It is used to sell new ideas and gain approval for new systems. So, you may find people who are difficult to be convinced in the audience. Therefore, you have to be this has to be done by a person who has good communication skills, and you must understand that what you are really going to do is maybe sell a new system or sell new ideas, sell change, because this would be something very, very difficult to do, because most people do not like change, especially the users who have got used to doing things in a certain way, And when you go and propose a new way of doing things, automatically their back will go up and they will say, why should we get used to this new kind of things? Head off criticisms, address concerns, verify conclusions, clarify facts and report progress. So, you have to do these formal presentations for any one of these activities. Maybe you are trying to sell a new system to the users, or you are trying to sell some new ideas, sell change, way of doing things you are trying to change, and there may be a lot of criticism for what you are proposing. So, you have to head off those criticisms. They may have a lot of concerns as users or owners of the system. So, you have to address those concerns, verify conclusions. All the conclusions that you have made, you have to really see whether they have understood these. Clarify facts. If there are any things that they have not understood during the presentation, you may have to clarify those, and also you have to report progress. So, during these formal presentations, sometimes you have to do them to report the progress of the project. So, a formal presentation should be followed up with a written proposal which provides the audience with a more permanent copy, because in a formal presentation you are all the time talking and people listen to you, but they may not be able to remember what you have said. So, because of that, it is always better to follow a formal presentation with a written proposal or written report, because then they have a document where everything has been documented, and even if they have forgotten what you have said, they can always refer back to the written report and clarify their problems. And also I would advise you to look at the problems at the end of the chapter 11. The chapter 11 in the textbook is mainly concerning with the feasibility. So, these problems that are at the end of the chapter 11 in reference 1 would be interesting to look at. So, that I think we have come to the end of what we really wanted to talk about, that is the problem definition and what you should have really in a project proposal. If we go back to the beginning, scope definition and the problem definition and the project proposal, how you should go about in preparing a project proposal in the system analysis development life cycle.